When I was a year old, my parents got a divorce. And I mean, growing up, it really didn't affect me until I was about 13 or 14. And then I started to be influenced by the lifestyle at my dad's because my dad and my stepmom and my brother don't go to church. And my dad may claim to be a Christian, but he's not. When I went up there, I tried to fit in, so my behavior and language would constantly change. And I'm a girl, so I'm a really good pretender, and I could pull that off. I was a big rebel, and me and my mom didn't get along every time I came home. And then the summer in between 7th and 8th grade, I went to camp, and I decided that I didn't want to cuss anymore, and I didn't want to do that stuff anymore. And I told my dad, I'm not going to cuss anymore. I'm not going to act like this because God has bigger and better plans for me. And he laughed in my face and said, you won't ever do that. You can't do that. And my stepmom and brother did the same thing. And 3 weeks later, they were right. And I was cussing and rebelling, and me and my mom stopped getting along again, and things just kept going downhill. It was 9th grade. Right after, I was doing my disease CD in 9th grade, and I was listening to my iPod to get the thought of like a tune to do, and the song Crashed by Daughtry came on. And in the chorus it says, and then I crashed into you and I went up in flames. Could have been the death of me, but then you breathed your breath into me. And right then, it's like God slapped me in the face and said, you gotta stop this, or something bad's gonna happen and it's not gonna be what you need to be doing. And after that, like, I almost broke down in tears that day because I was like, he's right. There's a reason this song came on right now. And I went home and I thought about it, and then after that, things just started to go back uphill. I quit visiting my dad's as much so I could like get back into the swing of things and like not fall back into that lifestyle. But then about 4 months ago, my life went haywire for a while because I started going back to my dad's again. And it started on Thanksgiving, and they said a prayer before dinner, and I was like, so you're gonna be hypocrites and pray on Thanksgiving, but you laugh at me for going to church and believing what I believe. And then Christmas came around, and I decided to pray silently because they didn't. And I had my eyes closed and my head bowed, and my brother was screaming at me to pass the ham. And he just kept yelling at me to pass the ham, pass the ham. And I raised my head, I said nicely, I was like, I'm doing something at the moment, I'm sorry, can you hold on? And he said, no, I'll get it myself, just do whatever you're doing. And that really hurt that they couldn't respect me, but I had to respect everything they did too, in the same respect. And then that didn't sit right. And then I came back on February for a family gathering with my stepmom's family. And I didn't talk to my dad that much all weekend. And on Sunday, when it was time to come home, they stuck me with a family who the dad's a meth addict and the family doesn't do anything about it. And I started crying before I left just because I was so uncomfortable and upset that my dad couldn't spend 4 hours of his life to drive me there and then drive home. And I'm his only daughter out of 2 kids. And it really hurt that he passed me off to them. I got a phone call from my dad 2 days after that. And he asked me what was wrong and why I'd been crying. And I told him, and he started yelling at me after telling me earlier in the conversation that he wouldn't get mad at anything I said. We finally talked it out the next day, and like, we're slowly starting to rebuild our relationships, but I remember going home the night he yelled at me and looking at the verse that I always look at, and it's verses actually, and it's 1 Corinthians 16, 13, and 14. And it says, stand firm in your faith, be men of courage, and do everything in love. And I have to remember that every time I go up there now, that I need to go up there and have courage to go up there And when I go up there, I need to have faith and be faithful to God. And then I need to remember to love them with all my heart. I'm Kelsey, and I am second.